Hi, y'all. Welcome to Sunday Night Live on a Monday for the holiday weekend. If you want to know how to get people to give to your nonprofit, especially if you are a new nonprofit, if you are a new nonprofit founder and money is one of your biggest struggles, getting people to believe in your nonprofit is one of your biggest struggles, you should be watching this video because in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share 3 things you need to do or you can do to convince people to give to your nonprofit. Now, my question for you is how many of you guys are struggling to make over $10,000, right? So, how many of you guys have been in a position where you're trying to make money, but you haven't been able to make enough, like over that threshold yet? I'm really interested to hear if you're in that situation. Let us know in the comments. While we're doing that, introduce yourselves in the comments as well. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what your nonprofit does. Get used to talking about your mission because if you don't talk about your mission, who else will? If you don't feel comfortable talking about your mission, then will your board members feel comfortable? Will your supporters feel comfortable? So you got to show up for your organization first. Thank you, Jackson. Good to see you on the live. And what I'm going to do today is give you guys a chance to share, collaborate, partner in the comments because partnership works, collaboration works, okay? But I really want to speak to those people today who are having trouble getting over that threshold of 10,000. And I just use 10,000 as a number. For some of y'all, it could be 5,000. It could be even less than that. If you haven't been watching me over the last couple of weeks, you should have been catching the lives because I'm sharing how to raise money. I'm sharing information about how to raise money, especially when you are super new, because a lot of people don't talk about raising money from the ground up. They talk about raising money when you've already done some work. So you just need to make sure that you watching the lives, you've checked out my workbook. Yolanda's going to be dropping the link to the workbook because that will give you a strategy to raise money when you're literally starting with nothing. Okay. So Tracy said, hey, Tracy, I don't even know how to begin to raise that much money. Okay, I got you. I'm going to address that one. And then Homes for Hope. My question is, may I throw a fundraiser for this organization without having it filed yet? I can circle back and answer that question. There is some caveats to that question, but generally, if you have approval at the state level, you can fundraise, but that's generally, and I can try to give you some of the caveats. All right. So I want to address Tracy's comment really quickly because she said, I don't even know how to begin to raise that much money. And the one thing that you may not realize about raising money is that it starts with your belief first. So I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm really, really not. But I'm going to say this so you can get used to hearing it. $10,000 is not a lot of money. And it's not a lot of money to raise. Now, if you hear me say that, you're probably going to be like, Tiffany, it is a lot of money. There are a lot of people out here struggling. So how can you say 10,000 ain't nothing? I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, if you want to have a nonprofit organization and you want to be around and you want to have a financially sustainable organization, $10,000 can't be something to sneeze at. You have to be comfortable believing that you can raise that much money, that you will raise that much money and even more. Right? So many of you are starting a nonprofit because you want to probably work full time for your nonprofit. You have a vision for paying people in your community, having staff, having services. And in order to do that, you need money. So we got to clear some stuff out the way, like the junk in the way that makes you think that's too much or you can't do it. It's not. And I thank you, Tracy, for being even brave to say that. But I'm glad you said that because we have to talk about money. And a lot of people get real funny when it comes to nonprofits and money. They get real funny. They're like, oh, you just talking about money. You're just talking about this. How else is your organization supposed to survive? How else are you supposed to run if you don't have the money to run? And you should not be creating an organization if you're not planning on paying staff to do work. Like if you're planning an organization to have employees, you got to pay your people and pay them well and pay them equitably. And how do you do that? Money. I need a money sign. I need like a money sound. So if that resonates with you, go ahead and put like a thumbs up sign or a strong arm. The strong arm is my favorite emoji. But if what I just said resonates with you, let me know in the chat. We have to get comfortable feeling okay talking about money and large amounts of money. There are people out here who are starting their organizations from scratch, who are getting to hundreds of thousands and eventually to millions in their budgets. And if you're starting out from scratch thinking, oh my God, I could never have $1 million organization. Yes, you can. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but yes, you can. That is completely possible. I'm not selling a pipe dream. It takes time, it takes effort, but there are organizations that can scale to get to that amount. Okay. So, yeah. So, Oliver Learning Center, I hear you, but it's still a struggle. I understand it's a struggle, but the first part in raising money is not even asking for a dollar. It's getting your mindset straight, believing that the money is available and the money is there. If you are struggling with that belief, then it's really going to be a struggle for you. If you can't get over the fact that you feel like there's not enough money, then you have blocks because there is enough money. It's just where are you finding that money? Where are you sourcing that money? Right. But if you are even saying to yourself, it's not enough, you've already handicapped yourself. Okay. So what I want to talk about today, because that really wasn't even what I was going to talk about today, but I did want to address that to make sure you understand that mindset matters and what you think and how you believe, what you believe about money. Okay. But today, somebody say today, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to get more people to give to you. And I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. So, a lot of people think that you got to keep finding new donors. Like you got to keep finding people who don't know about your mission to give to you. And that should be a part of your fundraising strategy. But one thing you don't realize is you got to pay just as much or even more attention to the people who've already expressed interest in your organization and who have already given. The gold or the treasure is in the people who've already given you money. So the first step to even getting there is getting your first set of donors. My workbook that talks about raise your first $10,000 is how it's a strategy for how you can get your first donors. Yolanda's dropping the link to that. If you have not seen that, I've done videos on that talking about peer-to-peer fundraising. Once you have your first set of donors, it's your time to start nurturing those relationships. And even if you don't have donors, if you have people who are interested, who've told you they care about your organization, somehow they volunteered, they showed up to an event, they decided to sign up for your mailing list, those people who have expressed interest, you got to love on those people. Because somebody say love, you got to love on those people. So I'm going to give you 3 things you should be doing when you are talking to engaging those people. Okay. So the first thing is keep in contact with them. That's the first thing that I want you guys to do. I'm just checking my notes because I see a question and I want to see something right real quick. I'll get back to that. I saw your question, Jackson. Honestly, I can't remember. And that's so terrible, but I will get back to your question. I think it's 69. Okay. So the first thing is keep in contact with them. And you may think that this is like really difficult. It has to be a lot. But I want you to realize that if you actually speak to people after they give to you, if you circle back with them, even if they're not really responsive to you, you're doing way better than like 80% of other nonprofits. I just threw that number out there, but it's pretty high. Most nonprofits don't have the capacity or don't have the systems in place to really pay attention to the people who've already expressed interest in them. Or they may be growing at a pace, or they don't have the staff to be able to be responsive when they're raising a lot of money, right? And so the power of being small, the power of you guys being new is that you do have the capacity for that because you probably don't have a lot of donors and you can be very personal in your communications with them. So if somebody has decided to give you money, I want you to ask yourself, what have I done after that moment? What happened after that moment? Did I learn anything else about that person? Did I make sure they got more than just a bland receipt? Did they even get a receipt? Okay. Did I tell them what happened as a result of them giving? It doesn't matter whether or not I met my fundraising goal, because sometimes, you may be raising money, but you don't raise the money you wanted. And so you just mad. And then you just move on to something else and use the money for what you need it for. But you don't circle back to the people who actually committed to you and said, I want to give you some money. So what was your communication like? Right? Yolanda's going to drop the link, Help Hope CC on Instagram. She's dropping the links for you so you can see it. So, and you can also go to bossonabudget.com/services and you can see the workbooks there as well. Okay. So ask yourself, how am I communicating with them? Do I have their contact information? Do I have their phone number? Do I have their email so I can even communicate with them? What am I saying to them? Have I introduced my organization to them at all? Because you probably did some upfront work to get them to give, but what more can you say about who you are? Have you welcomed them? Do they have a special welcome message? Welcome to the giving family, or whatever you want to call them, as people who decided to invest in your organization. Are you making them feel like they're a part of a community? Okay. So I want you to think about, how do I make people feel good about their gift? Because we stop at the gift, but what I teach is to chase connections, not dollars. So your actions do not stop at a gift at the moment you receive money, right? That's just the middle of the process. There's some stuff you got to do before, then you ask, you get your money, and then after you get your money, there are things you should be doing. So ask yourself, this is what I would recommend you do. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? You want to hear what I gotta say? Y'all taking notes? Y'all got your pencils out? I got my pencil. Write a system for yourself to say what happens after every gift. So just write out what that process will be. The process will be, within this amount of time, this thank you will go out. Within this amount of time, a person will get a phone call. Within this amount of time, a person will get an email sharing what we did with the money we raised last month, right? Or somebody will get something in the mail. I want you to just write down what your plan is, what's your after plan. Let's just say that. Very generic term, and it's not used in fundraising. I just made it up, but so I can make it as simple as possible. What's your after plan? Ask yourself, what is that? Okay. And just write it out and get used to doing that after every single gift you get. Just get into the practice of doing that. Y'all promise me you can do that? Like, I want you to walk away from this getting at least one thing, and this needs to be your one thing, right? So write out your plan, what you want to do, and get in practice of doing it. Not just you as the founder, but the board needs to decide who's doing what and when. So that's the first thing. Keep in contact. All right. Y'all got that? I hope you do, because I'm moving on to the next one. All right. Number 2. And this, I don't have like a good, clean title for this. So I'm just going to throw everything in this one right here. Okay. I don't have a good title for this, but let me just say, I started out by saying, do what you say you're going to do, but also have a standard. Be different. Be unique, right? Like, have a thing that makes you you. And the reason why I started with do the things you say you're going to do, because a lot of times organizations don't. A lot of times organizations don't show that what they say they're going to do actually happens. So you should get used to documenting your work. You need to get used to documenting in numbers, right? Like how many people you serve. You should have outcomes for your programs. You should see how well you do at reaching your outcomes for your programs. You should be tracking that. And you should be reporting back to people the things you said you were going to do. So you believe that this program is going to change somebody's life in some way. How? What way is that? That's your outcome. What are your outcomes that you're hoping to impact for your program? Hey, coach, what are those outcomes? You should be clear. Those should be like standards. They should be already written before you provide a service, because then you got to ask yourself, how am I going to measure whether or not we reached those outcomes? And then when you answer that question, you're going to ask yourself, well, how are we going to show and report back that we reached those outcomes? So remember when I said keep in contact with people? Y'all remember that? Let me know if you're still with me. You got to chat back with me now because we going deep. Talking about outcomes. A lot of people don't like to go deep like this. But this is how you become sustainable. This is how you create a successful nonprofit. You invest in these kinds of things early. Okay. So remember how I said you got to keep in contact with people. When you are circling back with them, you got to tell them something. You got to tell them what you did. You got to tell them about your successes. You got to tell them about the stories, right? So you being clear on what does success look like for your clients? What does success look like for your participants? The better you can articulate that, then you can package that in an email. Then you can share that in a phone call when you keep in contact with people. So be clear about what your change is. That really, really, really matters because people get invested and they get tied to, I don't know a better word to say it, but they really get invested in things that they believe are effective and things that they believe are making change. And it's important for you to be able to communicate and market that in a way that they believe you. They got to believe in what you're doing. And so a way to get people to believe in what you're doing is to show them proof that you did what you said you were going to do and that you were successful in reaching your outcomes. Does that make sense? Give me a holler if that makes sense. All right. See, I should be ready with my sounds, but my iPad, I'm just encouraging myself while I wait for y'all to tell me. I'm just encouraging myself. Okay. All right. So that's number 2. Hey, Kamika's in the building. Let's take a moment to lift up Thriving Kinship. Is an organization that serves kinship families in Texas. Y'all check her out. She just gave me a $19.99 super chat. She is the bomb. She is one of my greatest supporters. We gotta shout her out. Come on, y'all. Shout out Thriving Kinship. She gets the money. She gets the money gun. Thank you so much for your super chat on YouTube. I so appreciate you. I really, really do. You put a smile on my face. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's do number 3. Let's do number 3. This is how you get more people to give. This is how you get people to become invested. These are people who believe in your organization. They're your biggest supporters. They're not going to leave you because they are really, really tied into your organization. This is the third thing. And I don't have a good category for this one either. So I'm just going to say, this is not a good title, but I'm just going to say regulation. It's really not good, but I'm going to explain. Y'all going to let me explain? So people need to be assured that you're a real organization, especially when you're new and you may not have like a lot of proof, like social proof online, or, you know, people can't find you in the community, or they know you're new. Then you got to give people something to believe in. Like, they got to feel assured that when they give you money, that like it's a good thing, right? Like they can trust you, that you're not scamming them, because it's real. Like, people get scammed, and there's not a lot of trust in nonprofits. There's not a lot of public trust, but a lot of that is geared towards the bigger nonprofits like the Goodwills and the Red Crosses and Salvation Army, just because of all the things going around about people being upset about the CEO's pay. They feel like they don't really do what they say they're supposed to do. So there's not a lot of trust in nonprofits. So if I were a small nonprofit, I would leverage that. I would leverage that to show them how they could trust me, because I'm closer to the issue and I'm doing the work. So here's some couple things I want you to do. I want you to think about. First things first, y'all don't want to hear this, but you've got to have a board. And I don't think a lot of people understand the connection. I don't think a lot of people think how having a board means anything when it comes to public trust. Can anybody make a guess about why this matters? So, of course, I'm just going to say it because I don't have the patience to wait. But if somebody else wants to jump in the comments and answer too, please do. right? Because we are all here to build and learn from each other. But having a board matters because your board is the oversight for your organization. One thing you got to realize, accountability is a good one. Thank you for that. Maybe accountability is a good category title for this. But your board provides oversight. Your nonprofit is not your organization. Legally, it's not yours. You can't lay claim or ownership to it legally. It's supposed to be an independent organization. It's a group of people who, for the most part, should be independent of each other. They shouldn't be in business. Most of the people together should not be in business together or related to each other on a board because they have to make impartial decisions about what's best for the organization. And when everybody is related to each other or everybody's trying to make a come up for whatever reason, then you lose that independence and you lose that sense of check and balances. You have checks and balances because you're dealing with public money. You're dealing with other people's money. And people want to be assured that the decisions that are being made, first of all, that things are being monitored, that there are several people paying attention to this, that you have financial controls in place. And see, when you have a board structure, that means you're meeting, that means you're talking about things, that means you have certain policies in place, you have certain committees. And these are the things that I think people who have small nonprofits kind of shy away from because they don't feel comfortable doing this or don't realize they need these structures. But that's why you need these structures, because you have to have those checks and balances in place. And the more you pay attention to your policies and your bylaws and you have these conversations and you pay attention to them, the more likely people can trust that when they give you money, especially large amounts of money, that there's some structure in place to make sure that it's addressed or it's monitored accurately or effectively. Okay, so Cynthia said integrity. Yes, so you got to show some integrity, and having a board does that. When you skimp on your board, when you're not meeting, you're putting yourself at risk. I'm just telling y'all this. And I'm coming from a place where I get it. I get how hard it is to find board members. I get how hard it is for board members to show up. I understand. But I'm telling you that you need to invest the time to get a board in place for these reasons. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to take some time, but it's worth the investment. You need to invest in taking the time to look at your bylaws and make sure they're accurate, that they make sense, because that's your protection legally. Like, you need to know what your rules are. So when you make certain decisions, people can't question it. You need to know what your policies are. You need to have policies in place. So I just went on a rant, but that's part of it. But here's some other things you can do. Make sure that you're in compliance with the state. Make sure that when you fundraise at your state level, that you have registered to be able to ask people for money. 40 states require you to register before you solicit funds because they want to make sure you're not scamming people. They want to have a record and a list, and they want to know where your money's coming from. The state has something to say about this too. It's not just the IRS. Okay, the IRS wants to know where your money's coming from. The state wants to know as well. State really want to know. Okay, they want to make sure you're not scamming their residents. So, do you have the right disclosures on your website page? Sometimes you have to have certain fundraising disclosures. Is that listed on your receipts or any solicitations that you put? Do your research, right? Do you have an established website domain? When people try to find you, can they find you online beyond just Facebook? Right? Thank you, Yolanda. Yolanda said, I'm dropping gems. If you think I'm dropping gems, please put some gems in the comments. And I see some questions, so I am going to circle back. Right? So do you have a website, and is your website updated? Do you have a listing of your board members so people believe that this isn't just one random person in their living room putting up a website? There's actually people who are working with this organization, right? Do you have a reputable payment processor? If you know me, you know where I'm going with this. You should know what's about to come out of my mouth. Are you just using Cash App? That's shady to a lot of people, right? So do you have a reputable payment processor? So in case something happens, you have customer service. You have someone you can talk to make sure things are working right. Hey, Miss Tara, look, Miss Tara on my live. Hey, girl. I didn't even know you were on here, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about payment processors, and then I'm going to get off this. So if you are a nonprofit raising money, you need to have a payment gateway and then a payment processor. Your payment gateway is like the front. Sometimes I get them mixed up. I hope I'm getting this right. But you're front facing to collect the money, and then your processor has to process it and put it into your bank account. All right. So you often need two. Sometimes you can find services like GiveBox that are 2-in-1. They process your payment and they're the front facing. But you want a nice front facing payment gateway because you can put pictures and video and it can look legit. When you just tell people to Cash App you and you want somebody to send you $1,000 and you say, Cash App me $1,000 for my nonprofit, that's real shady. I don't even want to do business with somebody who wants me to send them that much money on Cash App. Okay? So that's one thing that I want you to realize. How are you looking to the people who feel like they need to trust you before they give? Okay? And make sure that you're not just relying on only one way to make money. I'm going to say it really quickly. I sent this in my email list yesterday. If you're not on my list, you're missing out because I send emails every Saturday. Did y'all get my email? What did I talk about? I talked about Facebook. Facebook is changing how they collect donations. Facebook in general doesn't have good customer service, and it's really confusing to get set up as a nonprofit on Facebook. But now they're shifting again, and they're no longer taking direct payments for donations. They're now going to be charging a processing fee when before you didn't have to pay any fees for your donations. And they're moving to the PayPal Giving Fund, which means it's going to take longer for you to get your money. It's going to take anywhere between 15 and 45 days, I saw. And sometimes for some people who don't register, 90 days. So if you don't have multiple ways to make money, and not just relying on other systems like Facebook or, Cash App, you need to have that structure in place. You need to have your own setup. Get a Stripe account, get a payment gateway, which is, when I say payment gateway, I'm talking about a donation platform, which could be Give Lively, Give Butter, Rally Up, Donately. Okay. Lisa, Maddie, and me, send me a DM and I'll send you a link. You can also get on my mailing list if you just download my startup checklist. So if you DM me, I'm interested, you should get a message to download the checklist and you're automatically added to my mailing list. But if you just DM me, I can make sure you get that link. Okay. Oliver Learning Center said they got the email. Okay. So I felt like I went on a tangent, but there's just a couple of things I wanted to throw out there for you to understand, for people to have confidence in your organization, especially for those people you want to give again. Because what happens is sometimes people give you small amounts because they're testing you. They'll give you a small amount, but if they trust you enough, then they'll give you more, or they may start giving monthly, right? So you are courting these people through this process. And if you want people to come back, then you got to give them something to come back to. You got to give them something they can trust. Sometimes people don't have an issue giving small amounts, even if it seems a little shaky to them. But once you want them to start giving a lot, you got to have certain protocols, standards, things in place. All right. I see one question. What about Zelle? So I know Zelle has been going through some changes. Zelle is owned by PayPal, and you can get a nonprofit Zelle account. It's my understanding now, but this is very, very new. So I know it's probably a lot of kinks in it. I would not only rely on Zelle either, because Zelle is just a way to get people to pay you directly, but it's not pretty. You can't create a website around it. It doesn't give you like a lot of flexibility like you would have with the donation platform. So have Zelle as an option, but I would say not your only option. And that's the same thing I would say for Cash App. And the reason why I don't like Cash App is because most people are using Cash App with their personal accounts. So, hey, Frida, you are against their terms of service. You're putting your organization at risk because you're not using the app the way you're supposed to if you're using a personal account. And their customer service is subpar. And it is not rare for Cash App to glitch. They glitch all the time. They take people's money all the time. Do you want your nonprofit to get mixed up in that? I don't think you do. That's all I'm going to say about Cash App. Okay. So let me roll through the comments to see if I missed anything. I did see a question. Somebody, I think you want the names of the donation platforms. I'll just say them again. Givebox, because I can't type easily on my phone on Instagram. Givebox, Give Butter, Give Lively, Rally Up, Donately. I've heard lately about Zeffy. There's so many. So you can kind of think through and pick the ones you want. So I'm just scrolling through. Hey now. Okay. So I remember seeing, I see a question from Monifa, I think. Would you suggest starting with fiscal sponsorship to begin with and then after time develop into a 501c3? That's a good question. It depends on you. It depends on where you are. If you feel like you're not ready and you don't have the structure and you can't handle the weight of paperwork and setting up your bylaws, but you still want to raise money and do the work, then fiscal sponsorship is definitely an option for you. Some people don't want to have the layers of another organization. They want to have just to be able to do the work directly. And so fiscal sponsorship seems too much for them and they don't want to do it. They would rather go their own route. So it really just does depend. But if you're in a place where you know you can't get a board together quickly, but you want to start raising money, then fiscal sponsorship should absolutely be an option for you. But you need to pick the right fiscal sponsor, make sure that they will handle your money correctly, have questions about like when you're going to get your money, what do your donors like, what do they get when they give? Because you want to know who your donors are. You want to have access to that data so you can circle back with them. All right. So I saw a question about how do you motivate your board? So I have a lot of tips about motivating boards. A lot of it starts with education. And that's what I talk about in coaching. So I want you guys, if you really need help kind of navigating through your nonprofit journey, because it's not just, okay, I tell you one thing and it happens. I want you to start thinking about whether coaching would work for you, because I'm about to open up slots in the next month or so, because I'm about to do another challenge. But I would say generally, motivating your board starts with their connection to the mission and them understanding their roles and their responsibilities. Because if people are on your board and don't realize what it takes, then a lot of times they're not committed because they don't even understand what they're supposed to be doing. I would venture to say that 90% of people who join new nonprofit boards, especially if they've never done this before, have no idea what they're supposed to do. They have no idea the level of involvement they're supposed to have. So that's part of it. But if you want to motivate people, you don't motivate people by giving them work. You motivate people by the mission. You motivate them by connecting them to the hope, to the possibility of what your organization can be. And you think about, what can I do to inspire people to continue this journey with me? Because if we do, a year from now, we're going to change somebody's life. So your action should be inspiring people to think about what happens as a result of their work. When people feel a connection to the mission, when they think they're doing something and they're helping, they're going to do the work if they're the right people. So this is the one thing you got to acknowledge. Sometimes you have the wrong people on your board. Sometimes, even if it's your mom, even if it's your cousin, they're the wrong people on your board. And sometimes it's the wrong time. Sometimes it's just not their time. It's not their season. You got to think about that too. So these are all of the things that I talk to about my coaching clients to help them navigate these tricky conversations, because it's a lot. But I want you to keep that in mind. Like, recruiting and maintaining a board is not a one-time thing. It's continuous. It never stops. It's just like pouring into your staff or pouring into your team that you work with. It's continuous. Thank you for the comment on the screen, Yolanda. 501c3, I hear it's very difficult. That is a loaded statement. So I don't know what you mean by that, Just Ty, but do you mean applying for one or maintaining one? Maintaining one it can be difficult if you don't have a team. It can be. It is a lot of work to get started, but it's a lot of work to start any organization. So you just got to keep that in mind. A lot of people think it's just easy because I'll get my 501c3 and I'll get a grant and that's it. That ain't it. Hi, my love. Thank you for joining the live. Good to see you. Your mama on here too. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right. So I'm just scrolling through. Y'all, before we jump off, just share in the chat what's the one thing you got from this? What's one gem you got from this? And if you know somebody who needs this information, then please share this live with them. I keep these lives up for a couple of days and then I save them for my members on YouTube. So the reason why I keep them up for a limited amount of time, because a lot of times when you have easy access to information, you take it for granted. Oh, I'm gonna watch it later. Oh, it's just Tiffany. She live again. Y'all, I'm literally giving class and you got to take this seriously. So that's why I take it down. All right, y'all. So if there's anything that you felt like you took from this that you want to share with your board, you want to go back and share with your partner, if you're doing a nonprofit together, drop it in the chat so you can remind yourself that you're doing this. Like you got to keep up. You got to keep doing this. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to recap real quick before I jump off. I know Yolanda's probably cussing me out because I keep saying I'm jumping off. But number one, keep in contact with your donors to get people to give more. Stay connected with them. Talk to them. Share information with them. Most nonprofits don't do that. So when you do, you rise to the top. Number two, do what you say you're going to do. Be clear on what your outcomes are. Be clear on what your change is, what success looks like, and communicate that to people what success is in your organization. And then number three, I like accountability better, right? So have accountability, have your board members in place, have the right structures, have the right policies, right? Have reputable websites. Pay attention to that kind of stuff because that matters when people are giving you money. If you know you need help or you want to ask questions about whether or not coaching with me is right for you, then you can please feel free to DM me. I will be watching my DMs tonight and I'll be watching them all week if you want to talk more about coaching to see if that's the best fit. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.